After hearing this, Lin Jing felt somewhat perplexed and thus asked, "Assist fellow Taoist Su in triggering the heavenly tribulation?" "How can I assist?" Su Yi said. "It's when you break through and enter the Golden Core Peak. You might sense a trace of the heavenly tribulation power. As long as Lin Dao you can sense that tribulation. At that time, fellow Taoists can join me in triggering the heavenly tribulation, intensifying this sensation, until eventually the heavenly tribulation descends within this devouring spirit blood realm. Of course, fellow Taoist does not need to undergo the tribulation yourself. You just need to enhance the sensation, then suppress your own cultivation, conceal yourself, and leave my side. In this devouring spirit blood realm, since it's an independent space, the tribulation sensation isn't so intense. Only initial assistance is required, and you won't be locked onto by the heavenly tribulation. As long as Lin Daoyu agrees, I can get spirit stones and elixir medicine for Lin Daoyu to help you break through to the Golden Core Peak." Lin Jing waved his hand and said, "There's no need for that." Having said that, he furrowed his brows and pondered for a while, then continued to ask, "Fellow Taoist Su, haven't you encountered any other suitable candidates during the time you have been here?" Sui then spoke. "Before Lin Daoyu arrived, I had interacted with a few, and there were even cultivators at the peak of Golden Core among them, yet none of them could sense the slightest trace of heavenly tribulation power within this devouring spirit blood realm. Now, within this devouring spirit blood realm, aside from myself, no one can sense the power of the heavenly tribulation. Although I can sense the tribulation, the feeling is extremely faint to the point where I can't even draw it down. Therefore, I wanted to try it with Lin Daoyu." After listening, Lin Jing nodded and said, "In that case, it does indeed seem possible." Afterward, Lin Jing once again addressed Su Yi, asking, "Fellow Taoist Su, I just arrived not long ago and heard that we were deceived into this devouring spirit blood realm. It was actually the work of a divine transformation cultivator who sought to ascend beyond the realm of divinity transformation. Do you know anything about this divine transformation cultivator?" Sui shook his head and said, "This message existed before I even came in, and the person who spread this message has long since turned into a blood corpse, making it impossible to trace back to its source. However, their words should be credible. Moreover, that mysterious divine transformation cultivator has never been seen in this devouring spirit blood realm. No one has seen what they look like, let alone knows their true identity. Presumably, they're somewhere observing the movements within this devouring spirit blood realm in secretness." After listening, Lin Jing also slightly nodded his head. It seemed that aside from Lin Jing, indeed, no one had seen that divine transformation cultivator. However, even so, it was natural for Lin Jing to not reveal everything he had seen while passing through the moon. After Su Yi finished speaking, he continued to address Lin Jing. "Now, nearly 700 Golden Core cultivators have been sent into this devouring spirit blood realm. According to the claim of 1,000 Golden Cores, with 300 left to be sent, that divine transformation cultivator will inevitably make their move. Your group was sent over in one go, 100 people at once, creating too much commotion. Next, they will likely quiet down for a bit, and the pace of sending people into this devouring spirit blood realm should slow down. That's why I want Lin Daoyu to rapidly enhance your cultivation during this time. Then assist me in breaking through the tribulation and shatter this devouring spirit blood realm. If Lin Daoyu reaches the peak of Golden Core and can't sense the heavenly tribulation power, then I will have no other solution." After hearing this, Lin Jing fell silent for a moment before saying, "All right, I'll give it a try." Now, he could only hope, as Su Yi said, that shopkeeper Shun and his group would stay quiet for a while, so that there would still be time, if they truly sent the remaining Golden Core cultivators in such a short period. When that divine transformation cultivator made their move, it was feared that not a single person in this devouring spirit blood realm would escape, and only by hiding in the system space could Lin Jing avoid disaster. Just then, Zhao Lingxing seemed to have remembered something and abruptly addressed Lin Jing. Lin Daoyu, did you, near the shore of the Sea of Blood Valley, kill a 9th-level golden core cultivator before? Lin Jing was taken aback for a moment, then nodded and replied, Yes, I did kill a 9th-level golden core cultivator. That person was also a puppet cultivator who had intended to kill me for my treasures, but was unexpectedly killed by me instead. Zhao Lingxing slightly furrowed his brows and said, It seems about right then. You will need to be extra careful during this time, Lin Daoyu. The 9th-level golden core cultivator you killed had a significant relationship with the guild leader of the Puppet Guild. They have already traced it back to you, and they're looking for you everywhere now. Lin Daoyu, it would be best to disguise yourself first, focus on your cultivation, and avoid running into them again. Lin Jing furrowed his brows and inquired, Puppet Guild, is that the organization of puppet cultivators? Zhao Lingxing said, Yes. Are they really that formidable? Zhao Lingxing then explained, If we were outside, these puppet cultivators wouldn't merit concern, but here, with the threat of blood corpses and many cultivation techniques not being usable, those puppet cultivators naturally have the upper hand. Hence, most cultivators would avoid provoking them if possible. As Zhao Lingxing spoke, Su Ye's brows furrowed slightly, and he said, However, since Lin Daoyu has already killed one of their people, you should disguise yourself now and focus on your cultivation until this matter blows over. After listening, Lin Jing spoke directly, saying, Don't worry, I'm not afraid of these puppet cultivators. Zhao Lingxing then continued, Since Lin Daoyu was able to kill that golden core 9th layer cultivator, I believe you definitely have a way to deal with them. But they are numerous and strong, and they like to send puppets to make stealth attacks at night the most. That is the most terrifying. Therefore, Lin Daoyu must still be very careful. Sui also spoke up at this time. Lin Daoyu, do you need my help? Lin Jing shook his head and said, No need. Su Daoyu, I appreciate your kindness. Helpless, Su Yi sighed and said, If that's the case, then you must be careful, Lin Daoyu. It's best to continue acting in this disguise. Don't change back to your original appearance. At least it can save you a lot of trouble. Upon hearing this, Lin Jing indeed found the advice sound. Although Lin Jing was not afraid of those puppet cultivators, facing them was always troublesome, so it would be better to keep the disguise and save a lot of trouble. Afterward, Lin Jing said to Su Yi, All right, from now on, I will use this disguise. While Lin Jing, Su Yi, and Zhao Lingxing were talking. At this moment, on another mountaintop, the Puppet Guild leader, together with several other members of the Puppet Guild, were gathered and discussing something. Are you sure that you saw the cultivator who killed my brother returning? One of the gray-robed cultivators asked another yellow pine cultivator in front of him. Yes, guild leader. The yellow pine cultivator replied with a bow. These puppet cultivators were all very respectful to the guild leader, because most of the puppetry techniques they practiced were handed down by this guild leader. Besides, some of the cultivators' puppets were also gifts from the leader. The puppet guild leader was very intelligent. He always welcomed anyone who wanted to join the puppet guild and taught them the methods for controlling puppets. Moreover, when imparting puppetry techniques, the guild leader also made it clear that he would hold back some of the art and that he could easily control others' puppets. Those who joined the puppet guild voluntarily, other than those who were truly desperate. The others, even outside, were not easy to deal with and thought of plundering first whenever they lacked spirit stones. However, now in the devouring spirit blood realm, their own cultivation techniques were too noisy, so they had to find other means. And practicing puppetry technique was the most suitable cultivation technique. Firstly, puppetry technique was much easier to practice than other techniques, and secondly, they liked the way the puppet guild operated. Although part of the spoils they obtained would be taken away by the guild leader, what was left was enough for their use. Indeed, the puppet guild leader could control others' puppets, but as long as no one was attempting to confront him directly, he actually wouldn't randomly control others' puppets. After all, the stronger the puppet guild, the more resources the guild leader would obtain. And for the cultivators under the guild leader, it was easier to understand. These people only needed to hand over part of the plunder to the guild leader, while the rest was enough for them to survive on. Otherwise, if they did not practice puppetry technique to plunder from others, they might very well become blood corpses themselves. Joining the puppet guild, aside from a somewhat unpleasant reputation, was far better than other cultivators in all other aspects. As for the reputation, when you can barely survive, what do you need reputation for? It was for these reasons that these puppet cultivators had such infamous reputations. Then, the guild leader continued and asked, "Where is that person now?" One of our guild members saw him being found by Yunxiang, and he followed Yunxiang. He's probably been noticed by Su Yi. The puppet guild leader frowned and muttered. Next, the puppet guild leader continued to ask, "Is anyone following him now?" "Yes," the yellow pine cultivator nodded. "We have a guild member who has been watching at the foot of the mountain, where Su Yi is located, keeping an eye on it." "Guild leader, what do we do next? Do we wait for him to come down and then strike to kill him?" The puppet guild leader knitted his brows and said, "My brother was a golden core 9th layer cultivator, yet this person was able to easily defeat him. His strength must be extraordinary, and his cultivation technique causes little noise, not fearing the blood corpses at all. Of course, I am not so foolish as to confront him head-on." "What does the guild leader mean?" the yellow pine cultivator asked, puzzled. The puppet guild leader replied, "Only at night can our puppet guild truly demonstrate our strength. Notify the others in the guild and say that I want to select a few people to ambush this individual at night. I will reward each participant with 200,000 medium-grade spirit stones. And moreover, if any puppets get damaged during this operation, I will take responsibility myself." 200,000 medium-grade spirit stones to these golden core cultivators might not be a lot in the outside world, but in the devouring spirit blood realm, it truly is no small amount. There are definitely many who would be tempted by it. Moreover, since the actions are taking place at night, one only needed to control the puppets, and there was no real danger to oneself. When calculated like this, it is completely a pie falling from the sky. Many would undoubtedly clamor for it. Afterward, the puppet guild leader continued to speak. "In a while, have the cultivator responsible for surveillance come back first. Since he has come back from the depths of the sea of blood, it means he has not found a way out. If nothing unexpected happens, he will surely settle down on a mountain peak. After he settles down, we'll make our move, and then we'll only need to know where he's staying." The yellow pine cultivator, upon hearing this, nodded and said, "Yes, guild leader, I will notify him right now." The puppet guild leader nodded, then waved his hand, signaling the yellow pine cultivator to leave. Meanwhile, on Lin Jing's side, after having a discussion with Su Yi, Lin Jing then left. Since no other exit could be found, Lin Jing's next step was to follow Su Ye's advice and rely on heavenly tribulation power to break through the special prison that was the devouring spirit blood realm. After leaving Su Yi, Lin Jing searched for a mountain peak as a place of rest for the night. Lin Jing first made a round in the vicinity and noticed that although there were quite a few mountain peaks nearby, there were also quite a few people. It wasn't too suitable to squeeze in anymore. Thus, Lin Jing spent another 4 hours outside the range of the Sea of Blood Beach before he found a quiet mountain peak. Afterward, Lin Jing carved out a cave on this mountain peak to reside in. Once Lin Jing had settled into the cave, the sky had also darkened, and then Lin Jing blocked the entrance with a black boulder. As for himself, he entered into the system space. Cultivation outside in the devouring spirit blood realm was impossible, but inside the system space, it was another matter entirely. The system space was rich with spiritual energy, and there was also the bonus of accelerated time flow. So Lin Jing's cultivation was almost the same as when he was in the outside world. Therefore, Lin Jing went straight to the alchemy room and began cultivating. And just like that, Lin Jing cultivated uninterrupted for half a month, and during this time, he was undisturbed and no one came looking for trouble. Meanwhile, Lin Jing's cultivation steadily improved with the continuous practice. However, while Lin Jing had no issues, the puppet guild had some. Just because Lin Jing had altered his appearance and the aura of his cultivation, making it vastly different from before. Moreover, to prevent startling the snake, the puppet guild leader had withdrawn the cultivator who had been tasked with surveilling Lin Jing. As a result, from that day on, they could no longer find any trace of Lin Jing. This made the puppet guild leader so angry that he nearly spat blood. Everything had been going well, but they had managed to mess it up, and Lin Jing was still completely unaware of all this. However, today, things finally took a turn. At the same mountain peak, the same yellow pine cultivator was reporting to the puppet guild leader. Guild leader, we have found out about that cultivator. The puppet guild leader, clearly in a bad mood, said directly to the yellow pine cultivator. Speak. The yellow pine cultivator, aware of the guild leader's foul temper, did not dally, but spoke at once. That cultivator, named Lin Jing. We only learned this after capturing 2 cultivators who knew him. Moreover, Lin Jing has a concealment cultivation technique that is extremely powerful, easily disguising himself as someone else and not being discovered by anyone. During this time, Lin Jing has not appeared and has not met with Su Yi. He has been alone. I think we should make our move on the unfamiliar cultivators. Among these strangers, Lin Jing must be one. After listening, the puppet guild leader's brow furrowed. After a moment's thought, a cold light flashed in his eyes as he said, Fine, we'll do it this way. Remove all unfamiliar cultivators. Yes, the yellow pine cultivator responded, then backed out. Time flew by, and a few more days passed. Today, Lin Jing finished his meditation, left the cave, and returned to Su Ye's mountain peak. Upon seeing Lin Jing, Su Yi expressed surprise. Lin Daoyu, I feel like your cultivation has improved quite a bit these past few days. Lin Jing replied modestly. It's okay, I made a bit of progress. Su Yi then said, Lin Daoyu, if you lack spirit stones or elixir medicines, let me know. I'll give you some. Lin Jing waved his hand and said, No need, I haven't been in the devouring spirit blood realm for long, and I still have enough spirit stones and elixir medicines with me. Su Yi nodded gently and then said, Lin Daoyu, if you're in need, just say the word. I still have quite a few. Lin Jing nodded and then said to Su Yi, Thank you for your kind offer, Su Daoyu. Actually, the reason I'm here is to ask if anything has happened recently with Su Daoyu. I haven't come out for a while, and I don't know the current situation. Su Yi nodded and then said, Indeed, several things have happened recently. One of them is that during the time you were in seclusion, another group of people was transferred in. Hearing about more people being transferred in, Lin Jing couldn't help but frown. Then he asked, How many people were transferred in this time? Su Yi said, This time, fewer were transferred in, only 6. Hearing that only 6 people were transferred in, Lin Jing also breathed a sigh of relief. It had been nearly a year since Lin Jing arrived. This was the first time that people had been transferred in since then, and the number of people transferred in was not large. If it continued like this, then there would be enough time for Lin Jing to cultivate. The fear was an incident like the one Lin Jing experienced, where in one trade meeting, 100 or more people were pulled in. In that case, after 2 or 3 more times, the devouring spirit blood realm would be filled with 1,000 people. These 1,000 people included not only the living cultivators, but also those who had turned into blood corpses or those who died within the devouring spirit blood realm. In fact, inside the devouring spirit blood realm, apart from cultivators, there were only blood corpses. Even those killed by other cultivators would soon turn into blood corpses and emerge from the sea of blood. Therefore, hoping to reduce the number of cultivators to prevent the 1,000 people from filling up was futile. Once you enter the devouring spirit blood realm, there's no escape. It was precisely because of this that Su Yi thought of using the power of heavenly tribulation to forcibly break open the devouring spirit blood realm. After listening, Lin Jing nodded and said, Besides this, is there anything else? Su Yi said, There is. Recently, for some reason, the Puppet Guild has made several moves at night, and many cultivators have been killed. These cultivators were all newly appeared, perhaps from the same batch as you, recent newcomers to the vicinity of the Sea of Blood Beach. Lin Daoyu, you need to be cautious during this time. New faces. Lin Jing pondered for a moment before nodding. Then, Suyi suddenly spoke up, asking Lin Jing again. By the way, Lin Daoyu, I haven't asked you yet. Where did you choose your mountain peak? Lin Jing replied. The place I chose isn't around here. It's already beyond the range of the Sea of Blood Beach. After that, Lin Jing informed Su Yi of his mountain peak's location. Su Yi listened and nodded, saying, it's better to leave the range of the Sea of Blood Beach. The puppet guild is quite active here. Afterward, the two chatted for a while, and Lin Jing left Su Ye's place. However, on the way down the mountain, Lin Jing felt something was amiss, as if someone was covertly watching him. Therefore, Lin Jing immediately extended his divine sense, probing the surroundings. Under the cover of Lin Jing's powerful nascent soul stage divine sense, nothing could escape. In Lin Jing's divine sense, he noticed the yellow pine cultivator was staring at him the whole time. Moreover, this yellow pine cultivator had a jade pendant that was emitting a glow. This jade pendant seemed to be a magical treasure with concealing abilities, attempting to hide its presence in the light, evading Lin Jing's divine sense investigation. However, the concealment effect of the jade pendant didn't work. Lin Jing's divine sense probe could clearly feel that while the jade pendant might suffice against the divine sense of golden core cultivators, against his nascent soul stage divine sense, it was practically like a mere decoration. Lin Jing did not act rashly against this cultivator observing him. Instead, he pretended to be unaware and directly departed the place on his sword. This time, Lin Jing didn't travel fast, and his divine sense continued to monitor the cultivator who was watching him. Seeing Lin Jing leave, the yellow pine cultivator hesitated for a while before he also mounted his sword and followed behind Lin Jing. Lin Jing noticed this, and his lips curved into a smirk. It seemed he still needed to find a way to deal with this tale. Following that, Lin Jing continued on his sword away from the Sea of Blood Beach, flying into the depths of the mountain range. During this time, Lin Jing's speed was consistently slow. The yellow pine cultivator also maintained a slow pace, following behind Lin Jing, until they entered deep into the mountain range. Lin Jing suddenly accelerated, departing from the divine sense range of the other person. After leaving the other person's divine sense range, Lin Jing immediately called out his system and entered the system space. Upon entering system space, Lin Jing wasted no time and immediately entered observation mode. When Lin Jing observed the outside situation in observation mode, the cultivator had just arrived at the place. At that moment, the yellow pine cultivator, who had lost sight of Lin Jing, couldn't help but be perplexed. Strange. Why did he suddenly accelerate? Could it be that he discovered me? Subsequently, the person gently touched the jade pendant hanging on his body and murmured to himself, "This shouldn't be happening. With the jade pendant given to me by the guild leader, no one below the nascent soul stage should be able to detect me." But just as the yellow pine cultivator was puzzled, he suddenly felt danger approaching from behind. Therefore, the yellow pine cultivator quickly turned around. Unexpectedly, to his astonishment, he found the person he was originally following now standing behind him. Taken aback, the yellow pine cultivator quickly spoke up. "You?" However, before the yellow pine cultivator could finish speaking, he saw a streak of Wu Tsai light arriving in front of him. The yellow pine cultivator hastily tried to dodge, but facing the Wu Tsai light that had already reached him, he couldn't react in time. He was hit directly by the Wu Tsai light as it entered his body. "How are you here? And what have you done to me?" At this moment, the yellow pine cultivator was utterly terrified because he discovered that ever since the Wu Tsai light entered his body, there was a sense of stagnation in his spiritual power. It seemed like it might stop flowing at any moment. This was actually another application of the 5 elements divine art. Using it to hinder the circulation of spiritual power in the opponent's body, thus achieving the effect of suppressing cultivation and controlling the person. Apart from stifling the circulation of the cultivator's cultivation, Lin Jing could also at any moment detonate the Wu Tsai light that entered his body. This technique was something Lin Jing figured out based on the power of the 5 elements divine art within the heavenly desire demon monarch's body. Faced with the yellow pine cultivator's questions, Lin Jing did not answer. His eyes were cold as he looked at him and asked, "Who are you? Why are you tracking me?" However, the cultivator raised his head to look at Lin Jing and spoke out directly. "Fellow Taoist, I think you might be mistaken. I was merely passing by, only to be attacked by you for no reason. What are your intentions?" Facing this person's evasion, Lin Jing naturally didn't believe him. Lin Jing had seen the cultivator's actions clearly just now. So Lin Jing said coldly, "From the beginning, I noticed you. Do you really think that your jade pendant can truly shield you from being detected?" Hearing this, the cultivator was startled, but he quickly gathered his wits and hastily argued, "At most, I was just traveling the same way as you." Before the person could finish, however, Lin Jing had already interrupted him. Lin Jing directly stimulated his divine sense, pressing it toward the cultivator while speaking. "If you won't speak, then I have no choice but to conduct a soul search by force." Feeling the terrifying pressure of Lin Jing's divine sense, the cultivator immediately broke into a cold sweat and looked at Lin Jing with fear, stammering, "You, nascent soul cultivator. No, that's wrong, your divine sense. It has reached the nascent soul stage." Lin Jing, looking at him, said, "So will you talk or not?" At this point, faced with Lin Jing's threat, the yellow pine cultivator no longer had any semblance of resistance, and thus spoke up. "I am a member of the Puppet Guild, and I'm doing this under the instructions of our guild leader to track down cultivators who are strangers to Su Yi." Puppet Guild. Lin Jing's eyebrows slightly furrowed. "Why does your Puppet Guild want to track down cultivators who are strangers to Su Yi?" The cultivator continued, "Because a year ago, the guild leader's younger brother was killed by a cultivator. By the time our guild leader found out about that cultivator, he had already entered the sea of blood. It wasn't until over half a month ago that this person returned from the depths of the sea of blood. Upon his return, Su Yi immediately sought him out. Originally, the guild leader thought everything was under control and there was no need for tracking. But unexpectedly, the cultivator changed his appearance and went into hiding. That is why we are searching for unfamiliar cultivators." With that explanation, Lin Jing understood what was happening. So, it turns out, the root of all this was because of that golden core 9th layer cultivator. Having said this, the yellow pine cultivator carefully observed Lin Jing. At this moment, he had confirmed that this person before him was most likely the objective of his search. Thereafter, Lin Jing looked at him and said, "The actions against unfamiliar cultivators by your puppet guild lately are also because of this matter, right?" The person hastily nodded and said, "Yes, senior." Faced with Lin Jing's terrifying pressure, the yellow pine cultivator dared not be arrogant and addressed Lin Jing as a senior. Afterwards, the person continued, saying, "Moreover, our guild leader has already dealt with most of the unfamiliar cultivators. I believe it won't be long before he finds you, senior." Lin Jing, looking at the yellow pine cultivator, saw that he seemed hesitant to speak, so he asked, "Is there something you want to say?" The man hastily nodded, then said, "Senior, I can actually help you deal with the puppet guild if you'd only spare me." Lin Jing then asked, "How can you help?" The cultivator then said, "The puppet guild leader is also aware that you're not easy to deal with. If he were to act against you, he would surely plan to exploit the night when you're less mobile and attempt to use puppets for a sneak attack. You just need to understand this puppetry technique, and you'll be able to find a way to counter it. I can teach you the puppetry technique and tell you some of its control methods. This way, you should be able to handle their night ambushes. If nothing else, you can at least disrupt the puppets." Upon hearing this, Lin Jing stared at the yellow pine cultivator and said, "How can I be sure that you're not deceiving me?" Facing Lin Jing's question, the yellow pine cultivator hastily assured him and said, "Senior, I can swear on my soul's spirit." Furthermore, from this moment on, I will sever my ties with the Puppet Guild, stay away from the sea of Bloodshore, and never oppose Senior again. Lin Jing gave a slight nod and said, "Good. If what you say is true, then I might indeed let you go." Upon hearing this, the Yellow Pine cultivator was overjoyed and said, "Thank you, Senior." True to his words, the Yellow Pine cultivator then proceeded to pass on the puppetry technique to Lin Jing. He was aware that if he wasn't honest, Lin Jing would certainly not let him off. Moreover, after teaching the puppetry technique to Lin Jing, he also went out of his way to explain several important secrets of puppetry technique, especially regarding the control of the puppetry, as well as how to cope with the external conditions of the devouring spirit blood realm. After explaining all this, the man took out a puppet from his storage bag and handed it to Lin Jing, along with a piece of black jade stone, which he also passed to Lin Jing. Having taken these out, the man hurriedly stowed his storage bag away. After securing his storage bag, the Yellow Pine cultivator directly said to Lin Jing, "That black jade stone is used to control the puppet, and moreover, if other puppets appear nearby, the black jade stone will also sense them." Upon hearing this, Lin Jing nodded. Finally, after making sure everything was explained, the Yellow Pine cultivator formally swore on his soul spirit that he would never become Lin Jing's enemy. Seeing the Yellow Pine cultivator swear, Lin Jing lightly nodded his head. The Yellow Pine cultivator, seeing Lin Jing's nod, immediately gave his thanks and was about to leave. However, at that moment, Lin Jing called out to him, "Wait a moment." Upon hearing Lin Jing's voice, the Yellow Pine cultivator paused and then turned around, smiling obsequiously and saying, "Senior, do you have any further instructions?" Lin Jing eyed the flattery in the cultivator's demeanor and ignored it, instead focusing on his waist where the storage bag was, and said, "Let me have a look at your storage bag." The Yellow Pine cultivator's expression changed in an instant, and he said cautiously, "Senior, this seems somewhat improper. If I have no spirit stones, it would be difficult for me to survive in the devouring spirit blood realm." Lin Jing spoke directly. "I don't want your spirit stones. I just want to see if you have what I'm looking for in your storage bag." Upon hearing this, the Yellow Pine cultivator quickly replied, smiling at Lin Jing, "Senior, may I know what you are looking for? I can just hand it to you directly. There's no need for Senior to go through the trouble." This action by the Yellow Pine cultivator made Lin Jing's brows furrow slightly. He had a feeling that something was not right. This Yellow Pine cultivator seemed particularly fearful of him, seeing his storage bag. But the more he acted like this, the more it proved that he had something to hide. However, looking unflinchingly at the man, Lin Jing asked coldly, "Are you refusing to hand over the storage bag?" At that moment, the Yellow Pine cultivator, with a face full of sorrow and anger, looked at Lin Jing and said, "Senior, I have told you everything and even sworn a soul spirit oath to never be an enemy to Senior. Do you really intend to push me to death?" Lin Jing's expression turned cold as he uttered, "Enough prattle." Immediately, Lin Jing made his move, sending a Wu Tsai light soaring towards the Yellow Pine cultivator. Seeing the Wu Tsai light flying towards him again, the Yellow Pine cultivator's face turned pale as he hastily turned around, attempting to escape. However, the Yellow Pine cultivator hadn't gotten far before he felt an overwhelming divine sense pressure descending from the sky. This divine sense pressure was so formidable that the Yellow Pine cultivator couldn't put up any resistance and stumbled to his knees, defeated. At the same time, the Wu Tsai light once again entered the body of the Yellow Pine cultivator. That familiar sensation besieged him again. Then, Lin Jing retracted his divine sense and walked towards the Yellow Pine cultivator. The Yellow Pine cultivator also turned his head, looking at Lin Jing, and said, "Senior, why are you doing this? Do you, Senior, really intend to be known as a dishonorable and untrustworthy villain?" Lin Jing simply replied, "You seem very afraid of me checking your storage bag. What is inside it that makes you so nervous? I am very curious." Hearing this, The yellow pine cultivator's body was drenched in cold sweat as he hurriedly tried to explain. Senior, actually, there are some high-quality elixir medicines inside my storage bag. I feared Senior might take them, which is why I concealed them. If Senior desires them, I will directly offer those elixir medicines to Senior. However, Lin Jing did not have the patience to listen to his explanations and resolutely continued walking towards the yellow pine cultivator. Seeing this, the yellow pine cultivator became even more frantic. Senior, I can give you my storage bag, but please undo the spell on me first, and I'll unlock the restrictions on the storage bag for Senior. At this moment, Lin Jing had already reached the man, and, with a wave of his hand, the man's storage bag flew directly into Lin Jing's hands. Immediately afterward, Lin Jing picked up the storage bag, broke its seal, and sent his divine sense into it. Inside were spirit stones, elixir medicines, various materials. Even there were a few magical treasures. It was when Lin Jing saw these magical treasures that one flying sword caught his attention. Because Lin Jing had seen this flying sword before. It was indeed Yuanshu's flying sword. Yuanshu's flying sword, however, in the storage bag of the yellow pine cultivator, caused a sudden heaviness in Lin Jing's heart. Then, Lin Jing took out the flying sword and placed it in front of the yellow pine cultivator, his face stern as he stared him down and asked, "This flying sword, where did you get it from?" The yellow pine cultivator, seeing Lin Jing take out this flying sword, had a moment of panic, aware that something was amiss, so he quickly defended himself. "This flying sword, I found it on the beach of the Sea of Blood. It should belong to some blood corpse." Although the yellow pine cultivator said so, his eyes could not hold steady, and even his attitude was not as certain as that of other cultivators. Clearly, he was trying to conceal something, but Lin Jing's divine sense had already spread out, covering him entirely. Under the surveillance of Lin Jing's nascent soul-stage divine sense, any minute movement by the yellow pine cultivator couldn't escape Lin Jing's watchful sense. Obviously, this yellow pine cultivator was lying. Seeing this, Lin Jing did not bother to speak any further. Instead, he directly approached the yellow pine cultivator, extending his hand, descending upon his head. Seeing Lin Jing's icy gaze as his hand reached toward his own head, how could the yellow pine man not realize what Lin Jing was about to do? His face filled with terror, one hand pressed against the ground as he continuously retreated, all the while shaking his head, trying to fend off Lin Jing's hand. "No, no, you can't do this. I've already told you everything I know." However, how could Lin Jing allow him to resist at this moment? Suddenly, the multicolored radiance within the man's body surged, breaking through his form. The yellow pine cultivator immediately became immobilized, and Lin Jing's palm was timely placed on top of the man's head. Following that, Lin Jing activated his divine sense, directly probing into the yellow pine cultivator's sea of consciousness. Instantly, the memories of the yellow pine cultivator unfolded scene by scene within Lin Jing's sea of consciousness. Considering Lin Jing's strength of divine sense, he could indeed directly use the soul-searching technique on a golden core cultivator. But the process of soul-searching was hardly bearable. Not only did the man being soul-searched scream incessantly, but even Lin Jing himself suffered from the vastness of his memories, causing him a splitting headache. Lin Jing endured the pain, rapidly sorting through the man's memories. From childhood to adulthood, every little detail the yellow pine cultivator had experienced was poured into Lin Jing's mind in a single breath. Facing the growth history of the yellow pine cultivator, Lin Jing naturally had no interest and brushed quickly through it. Until recently, Lin Jing finally found what he wanted to know in the man's memories. Yuanshu and Yunxiang were both captured by the people of the Puppet Guild. Moreover, it was this yellow pine cultivator who led the capture, and the reason behind it was to find Lin Jing. Then, Lin Jing continued sorting, just like this, up until a few days ago. Lin Jing saw in the yellow pine cultivator's memories that after getting information out of Yuanshu and Yunxiang, and draining all their worth. They were murdered. Upon witnessing this scene, Lin Jing's anger surged to the sky. Although he had only met Yuanshu in the devouring spirit blood realm, the man was kind-hearted and good to his friends. And Jian Yunxiang was very much like Yuanshu. Moreover, Lin Jing also learned most of the secrets of the devouring spirit blood realm from his mouth. These were people who had been of great help to him. Yet these two were cruelly murdered by people of the puppet guild simply for being acquainted with him. This caused Lin Jing to burn with fury, and a killing intent arose within him. After completing the soul search, Lin Jing withdrew his divine sense, looking coldly at the yellow pine cultivator who had collapsed on the ground. At this moment, the yellow pine cultivator, though unable to move, had eyes filled with pleading. The capture of Yuanshu and Jian Yunxiang was this man's idea, and the hand that ended their lives in the end was his as well. Lin Jing had no mercy to speak of for this man, and naturally, Lin Jing was not going to let him off. Facing the pleas of the yellow pine cultivator, Lin Jing thought of the tragic states of Yuanshu and Jian Yunxiang before their deaths, his eyes growing colder. Afterward, the palm Lin Jing had on the yellow pine cultivator's head exerted force, shattering his skull with a single blow. The yellow pine cultivator didn't even have the chance to beg for mercy before he died by Lin Jing's hand. In fact, there was one more person. Although this person was the mastermind behind the capture of Yuanshu and Jian Yunxiang, the real cause of the matter lay with the puppet guild leader. Only by killing him could this be settled. Besides, even if Lin Jing didn't seek out the puppet guild leader, he would take the initiative to find Lin Jing, probably within these few days. However, the puppet guild had no shortage of members, and even Lin Jing dared not be arrogant enough to directly trouble them. Therefore, Lin Jing's next course of action was to find a way to eliminate the puppet guild leader, or even to eradicate the puppet guild. After taking care of the yellow pine cultivator, Lin Jing removed his disguise and reverted to his original appearance, riding his flying sword towards the sea of Blood Beach. From a memory of the yellow pine cultivator, Lin Jing had learned that the leader of the puppet guild was extremely cautious and devious. Even facing Lin Jing, his brother's killer, he did not plan to deal with him in an open and above-board manner. Instead, he wanted to use the puppet guild's advantage at night, in conjunction with blood corpses, to eliminate Lin Jing. And his idea coincided with Lin Jing's own plans. Of course, Lin Jing did not wish to openly conflict with the puppet guild either, considering its numerous members. If a conflict really broke out, Lin Jing was not necessarily going to have the upper hand. Lin Jing also planned to take advantage of the night when the members of the puppet guild were scattered and dared not venture out freely. He could then find their caves and defeat them one by one. Therefore, Lin Jing had revealed his true identity and came to the Sea of Blood Beach for this purpose. After making a round, Lin Jing immediately noticed that several cultivators had taken notice of him. Presumably, they all were from the puppet guild. As soon as Lin Jing appeared on the Sea of Blood Beach, someone immediately reported this news to the puppet guild leader. After receiving this message, the puppet guild leader thought for a moment and then asked the subordinate who had reported it, "Are you sure? It's only him by himself this time?" That cultivator responded, "Yes, guild leader. Just him alone. Should we take action and eliminate this person?" After hearing this, the puppet guild leader pondered for a moment. Then his gaze sharpened, and he said, "You go secretly follow him and find his cave. We'll move tonight." "Yes," replied the cultivator before he withdrew. After circling the Sea of Blood Beach, Lin Jing figured that the puppet guild leader must have received the news. Therefore, Lin Jing quickly left the area. This time, Lin Jing did not return to the previous mountain peak. Instead, he found an inconspicuous mountain peak not far from the Sea of Blood Beach in the desolate mountain range and carved a cave to reside in. Beforehand, Lin Jing's divine sense had been observing the surroundings. Under the cover of Lin Jing's divine sense, a cultivator was found to have been following him ever since he left the Sea of Blood Beach. Up to now, this person was still carefully hiding and following behind him. Although the person tried to conceal himself thoroughly, he could not evade the exploration of Lin Jing's divine sense. However, Lin Jing did not pay him any heed and entered the newly carved cave directly. After Lin Jing entered the cave, that cultivator following him then left. Only when dusk was about to fall did the cultivator return. This time, besides him, he brought 3 others. Together, for cultivators found a mountain peak not far from the one Lin Jing had occupied, and they too carved out a cave. Lin Jing then sent out his divine sense, sweeping toward the caves of those 4 cultivators. After some investigation, he discovered that the puppet guild leader was not among them. Lin Jing couldn't help feeling a bit disappointed. Given the guild leader's cautious nature, this was to be expected. However, Lin Jing had already prepared a countermeasure for this. So, he was not in a rush but retracted his divine sense, sat cross-legged inside the cave, and waited for nightfall. Soon, night fell, and once again the world was bathed in silence. Lin Jing held a black jade stone in hand and waited quietly. Before long, rustling noises came from the outside. Soon, a voice came from outside. "Brother Lin Jing, are you there?" Since Li Qingqing had not come to the devouring spirit blood realm, it naturally goes without saying that the voice belonged to that soul-devouring Yin spirit. At this moment, the black jade stone in Lin Jing's hand showed no reaction. "I want to see you. Can I come in, please?" This voice belonged to Li Qingqing. Since Li Qingqing had not come to the devouring spirit blood realm, it naturally goes without saying that the voice belonged to that soul-devouring Yin spirit. At this moment, the black jade stone in Lin Jing's hand showed no reaction. Clearly, those puppet cultivators had not yet made their move. In the face of the noise outside, Lin Jing did not react at all. After some time, the noise outside disappeared as well, and Lin Jing continued to meditate inside the cave. After the noise had disappeared and some time had passed, there was new activity outside. This time, footsteps were heard approaching the entrance of Lin Jing's cave, then stopping just outside, followed by a series of loud bangs, accompanied by the sound of falling rocks. This sound, along with the actions outside, truly seemed as if someone was damaging the entrance's black boulders. If it were not for the lack of response from the black jade stone in Lin Jing's hand, he might have thought that those puppet cultivators had made their move. The noise did not last long and soon ceased. After the noises stopped, some time passed. The same sound arose again. However, this time the difference was that the black jade stone in Lin Jing's hand had become hot and was emitting a red glow. It was obvious. The puppet cultivators had already taken action, and at this moment, the puppets were already at the entrance of his cave. Seeing movement from the black jade stone, Lin Jing hurriedly employed the puppetry technique he had learned from the yellow pine cultivator. He then placed the black jade stone before him, his hands continuously forming seals. Following that, the black jade stone began to change in response to Lin Jing's hand movements, gradually turning a bright red, and the black light it emitted grew even more intense. As the black light from the black jade stone became stronger, the noises outside Lin Jing's cave also gradually ceased. And so a while passed. Outside, there was complete silence. Then another voice came. "I'll give you a chance. Throw out your space ring, or don't blame us for being impolite." Lin Jing was startled by this voice, then quickly realized what was happening. It seemed that the soul-eating spirit was still at play. Lin Jing immediately concentrated his divine sense, extending it out. Previously, Lin Jing had learned from Jian Yunxiang that while this soul-eating spirit could control the divine sense of a golden core cultivator, it could be completely resisted by the divine sense of someone at the nascent soul stage. Therefore, Lin Jing dared to extend his divine sense. As soon as Lin Jing's divine sense reached out, he immediately felt a strange power of consciousness attempting to influence his own divine sense. However, despite this consciousness power being strong, Lin Jing was able to resist it completely, under the sweep of Lin Jing's divine sense. At this moment, in front of Lin Jing's cave, there were 4 humanoid puppets. These 4 puppets stood motionless, their eyes tightly shut. Behind each puppet, There was an almost invisible black thread that connected far into the distance. This was the way to control puppets, and Lin Jing was able to see these threads precisely because he himself had acquired the puppetry art. If Lin Jing wished, he could even follow these threads to find the people behind the puppets. Apart from these 4 puppets, there were several blood zombies behind them. It was like they were working in concert. The puppets would break the black boulder, and then the blood zombies could rush into the cave to kill. Atop the head of the leading blood zombie, Lin Jing saw the soul-eating spirit that had been misleading people. At this time, the eyes of this soul-eating spirit had turned blood red, spreading out countless black ripples. Moreover, those ripples were relentlessly attacking Lin Jing's divine sense. This soul-eating spirit was indeed troublesome. In addition to its deceit, it was also capable of launching attacks using divine sense. The attacks were strong. Had Lin Jing's divine sense not exceeded the nascent soul realm, he doubted he could have withstood even for a moment. Lin Jing concentrated his divine sense, braving the soul-eating spirit's attacks to inspect those few puppets. He didn't rashly venture out. In fact, Lin Jing could have gone out and collected those puppets. Moreover, after collecting the puppets, Lin Jing could enter the system space to avoid the pursuit of the blood zombies and the soul-eating spirit. If Lin Jing wanted, he could even do as the previous body refinement cultivator did, find the caves of those 4 puppet cultivators and directly kill all 4 of them. But Lin Jing didn't plan to do so. He didn't want to expose his ability to move at night. At least not before the puppet guild leader arrived. He didn't wish to raise any alarm. If he could kill a few people during the night and still remain unharmed, that would surely alert the puppet guild leader. Lin Jing didn't want to startle the snake in the grass. The foundation of the puppet guild was entirely reliant on the puppetry of its leader. If the guild leader died, the puppet guild would naturally disband. Now, Lin Jing only needed to control the puppets, ignoring everything else, and collect the puppets after daylight tomorrow. What followed? Lin Jing, just like that, controlled the puppets to keep them immobilized until daylight. Only after daylight did Lin Jing rise, directly move the colossal black stone, and then collect those puppets. He had already discerned the locations of those puppet cultivators' caves yesterday. Therefore, after collecting the puppets, Lin Jing did not linger. He directly leaped into action, rushing toward one of the puppet cultivators' caves. The reason Lin Jing waited until daylight to act was all part of his previous plan. Although Lin Jing didn't plan to reveal any other secrets, the puppetry technique was something he was bound to expose. Only by doing so could he make the puppet guild leader aware that he had learned the puppetry art, and thus lure him into coming. Lin Jing knew that the puppetry technique he had acquired from the yellow pine cultivator was flawed, and that he could control puppets. The puppet guild leader surely had a countermeasure. Only by exposing his use of puppetry would the puppet guild leader personally deal with him. Now that his use of puppetry last night had been made known to these 4, the message was already out. But Lin Jing didn't plan to let all these people go. At most, he would leave one to deliver the message. As for the other 3, Lin Jing intended to keep them all. So, at the break of dawn, Lin Jing directly burst out of the cave, flying toward one of the puppet cultivators' caves. Upon reaching the cave entrance, Lin Jing didn't hesitate at all. He sent his divine sense into it, and the situation inside the cave came to mind. The puppet cultivator inside was just about to get up and leave the cave. However, Lin Jing had already arrived. After getting there, Lin Jing did not pause. He landed at the cave entrance and threw a punch to shatter the black boulder. Following that, Lin Jing charged into the cave and grabbed the puppet cultivator. The moment this cultivator saw Lin Jing, he was overcome with terror. You're actually a body refinement cultivator. But that sentence became his last words. Afterwards, Lin Jing slapped the cultivator's dantian, instantly destroyed the man's dantian. With his dantian destroyed, even without Lin Jing lifting a finger, the eyes of the puppet cultivator instantly lost focus, turning him into a walking corpse. Due to the noise Lin Jing had made earlier during his actions, he naturally attracted the attention of the other 3 who had been monitoring him. No sooner had Lin Jing disposed of the first puppet cultivator than two other divine senses probed over. Seeing this horrifying scene, how could the three not understand what had happened? Seeing Lin Jing beginning to settle accounts, the remaining three were startled and immediately stopped lingering, hurrying to escape towards the Sea of Blood beach. At this point, having lost their puppet, they had almost no ability to resist and could only hope to reach the Sea of Blood beach for help from others inside the puppet guild. Having dealt with the first person, Lin Jing collected his storage bag and then acted again, flying towards the remaining two men. However, before even entering the area of the Sea of Blood beach, Lin Jing had already caught up to them. Seeing Lin Jing catching up so quickly, the three men, in desperation, accelerated even further, tried to escape the area as fast as possible. At this time, the gap in cultivation between the men became evident. One with a higher cultivation moved the fastest. Very soon, he had opened up a considerable distance from the two behind him. Seeing this, Lin Jing burst forth at top speed, rapidly closing in on the two lagging behind. By now, Lin Jing was not far from the two cultivators. With one more burst of extreme speed, he could catch up with the two men. At this moment, the group was nearing the vicinity of the Sea of Blood beach. If they pursued further, they would likely enter Puppet Guild territory. The commotion of this chase quickly attracted the attention of other cultivators. Those spectators, upon seeing someone brazenly killing Puppet Guild members in broad daylight, all gasped in shock. Such a bold move had never been seen before. When the onlookers saw Lin Jing's explosive speed, someone immediately cried out, "This is a body refinement cultivator." Ever since a body refinement cultivator had withstood the attack of the blood corpses at night, found the puppet cultivator's cave, and killed him. The reputation of body refinement cultivators within the devouring spirit blood realm had become prominent, and few wished to provoke such terrifying beings. Aside from body refinement cultivators who could cause trouble for the Puppet Guild, there was no one else. Now, another body refinement cultivator had appeared, openly attacking Puppet Guild members in broad daylight. How could the gathering crowd not be shocked? Seeing that the two trailing men were about to enter the domain of the Sea of Blood beach, Lin Jing immediately employed extreme speed again and appeared behind them in an instant. Then, Lin Jing directly struck one of them on the top of the head with his palm. The fleeing puppet cultivator attempted to dodge, but it was too late. Lin Jing's palm descended with incredible speed, landing on the puppet cultivator's head. As the palm struck, blood splattered everywhere, and the cultivator's skull collapsed instantly. Following, a crimson mix laced with gray splashed out. The other person, seeing this, knew he could not escape and stopped running. Instead, he covered himself with innumerable spiritual shields, his eyes bloodshot, and shouted, "Go to hell." At the same time, his other hand formed a seal, summoning countless flashes of lightning. The lightning covered the sky, enveloping Lin Jing within it. Seeing this scene, the person who had escaped the fastest, along with some of the original onlookers, immediately turned pale. They quickly retracted their auras and withdrew a good distance to the rear. Seeing this, Lin Jing also retreated, leaving the area. The man was doomed. His spell was too noisy and would inevitably attract blood corpses. Indeed, before the spell was fully unleashed, several blood corpses rushed out from the Sea of Blood and arrived right next to the cultivator. The sight of the blood corpses filled the cultivator with despair. He knew he was doomed to die. Therefore, he turned around, his eyes filled with madness, and charged at Lin Jing, trying to draw him into the perception range of the blood corpses. However, the man's speed was no match for Lin Jing's. Before he could catch up with Lin Jing had already retreated far away. And at that moment, the blood corpses had already intercepted him and commenced battle. This time, facing the blood corpses, he did not hold back. A myriad of powerful spells were unleashed from his hands, immediately bombarding the blood corpses with wounds. However, these blood corpses simply could not be killed. No matter how severe the injury, they would promptly heal. Before long, The cultivator's spiritual power was exhausted, and a blood corpse pierced his chest, causing him to fall. After killing the cultivator, the blood corpses, with his body in tow, flew back to the sea of blood. By now, the recent battle had attracted quite a few onlookers, but none dared to make an appearance. Even those who had been watching nearby were silent. And the cultivator, who had escaped the fastest, was nowhere to be found. Presumably, he had already returned to Puppet Guild territory, bringing news back with him. And Lin Jing, at that moment, he too left the area on his sword. After Lin Jing left, the cultivator he had been chasing finally let out a sigh of relief. However, he dared not rest for long, as he needed to report the incident to the guild leader. Without looking back, the man hurried away. When a man arrived at the guild leader's dwelling place of the Puppet Guild, seeing how disheveled the man was, the Puppet Guild leader's eyebrows immediately furrowed, and he asked, "What happened? Weren't you supposed to ambush Lin Jing? How did you end up in such a mess?" Not daring to conceal anything, the man quickly said, "Guild leader, we miscalculated. That Lin Jing, he also knows puppetry technique. When we sent over our puppets to control him, he took control of them with puppetry technique, and we lost contact. Just as dawn broke, he stormed out of the cave and attacked several of us. Besides, Lin Jing is a body refinement cultivator, and we, for people's puppets, were seized by him and stood no chance at all. The three of them all died at the hands of Lin Jing, and only I was lucky enough to escape. Body refinement cultivator." Hearing the cultivator's words, the Puppet Guild leader's frown deepened, and he asked the man, "Are you saying he also practices puppetry technique?" The cultivator replied, "Yes, guild leader. Last night, the four of us had coordinated our efforts to control puppets and go to his cave entrance, aiming to entangle him. But not long after I sent my puppet over, it was controlled by someone else. It could not move, and soon afterward, it was completely out of my control. Originally, I planned to inform you as soon as dawn broke, but early the next morning, Lin Jing came out of the cave and directly found the third brother's cave and killed him. After killing the third brother, the few of us knew something was wrong and immediately tried to escape, but he was too powerful, and we were not his match. He quickly caught up with us. In the end, only I managed to escape." After hearing this, the Puppet Guild leader pondered for a while and then asked, "Do you know how he learned this puppetry technique?" The man shook his head and said, "I don't know. However, although he managed to control our puppets with puppetry technique, I could sense that his use of it was somewhat unskilled. His time practicing puppetry technique couldn't have been long." The Puppet Guild leader nodded lightly and said, "I see." The words of the Puppet Guild leader left the cultivator somewhat puzzled, so he inquired, "Guild leader, you understand?" The Puppet Guild leader nodded and added, "If there are no surprises, it should be that some of our own people had fallen into his hands before this, and that's how he acquired the puppetry technique. After all, we were in the light before while he was in the dark. It's very easy to launch a sneak attack on someone within the guild." Upon hearing this, the man suddenly realized and said, "What the guild leader says makes sense. So, what should we do next to deal with this person?" After hearing this, the Puppet Guild leader looked at the man and asked again, "Aside from being a body refinement cultivator, does that person have any other hidden strengths?" The cultivator, who had escaped thought for a moment, and responded, "Because we lost the puppets, we didn't confront him directly while avoiding his pursuit. However, that man has the cultivation of a golden core at the 9th level, and combined with the incredible speed that a body refinement cultivator can unleash, we were quickly caught up to. If I must say, it's that his speed is very fast, and his divine sense, able to control the four of us puppets, must also be exceptional." After listening, the Puppet Guild leader nodded and said, "All right, I understand. Next, I will take action personally." Upon hearing this, the man's eyes lit up as he said, "Yes, guild leader. When the guild leader takes action, it is always extraordinary." Previously, he had witnessed the guild leader's puppet, which was comparable to a body refinement cultivator at the golden core 9th level. Moreover, the puppetry technique was originally transmitted by the guild leader himself. As long as he wishes, he can take control of anyone's puppet. Even if Lin Jing practices puppetry technique, it would be useless in front of the guild leader's puppet. With the guild leader's intervention, success is almost certain. Then, the puppet guild leader took out a small storage bag from his own storage bag and handed it to the cultivator, saying, "Here are some spirit stones as a reward for your actions this time." The man accepted the spirit stones and said, "Thank you, guild leader." Then the puppet guild leader waved his hand and said, "All right, you may go now." However, the man spoke again. "Guild leader, this incident was seen by many, and I expect there will be rumors detrimental to our puppet guild." Upon hearing this, the guild leader's brow creased slightly, and he nodded and stated, I am aware. Just wait. In a few days, I'll make all these rumors disappear." After leaving, Lin Jing returned directly to his previous cave dwelling. However, not long after Lin Jing returned, Suyi came looking for him. Upon seeing Lin Jing, Suyi said, "I saw you chasing down a cultivator from the puppet guild. What on earth is going on? Don't tell me you've been exposed." Lin Jing nodded and said, Yes. Yesterday, I didn't hide my identity and took a stroll on the blood beach, and they followed me." Suyi was startled and quickly asked, "Lin Daoyu, why did you do that?" Lin Jing looked up into the distance, fell silent for a moment, and then said, "Consider it an act of revenge for friends. They killed 2 of my acquaintances in their search for me." Upon hearing this, Suye's eyebrows immediately furrowed. "It's like that. Now that you've killed people from the puppet guild, they definitely won't let you off. What are your plans now? Are you going to hide again? Or are you going to fight them head on? Do you need my help?" Lin Jing then turned his head, looked towards Suyi, and said, "Speaking of which, there really is something I need your help with, Su Daoyu." Suyi hurriedly said, "What is it? Please tell me, Lin Daoyu." Lin Jing then said, "I need you to expose the location of my cave to them." Lin Jing's words startled Suyi. "Lin Daoyu, what do you mean by this? If you expose the location of your cave, you'll truly be in danger. I know the puppet guild leader. He will definitely take the opportunity to retaliate against you at night." Lin Jing said, "No worries. I've already found a way to deal with him. I'm not afraid of him coming. I'm afraid he won't come." Suyi looked at Lin Jing with a puzzled expression and said, "Lin Daoyu, are you that confident?" Lin Jing replied, Seeing Lin Jing's resolute attitude, Suyi nodded and then said, "All right, since Lin Daoyu says so, then I will do as you ask and expose the location of this cave." Lin Jing nodded and said, "In that case, I'll trouble you, Su Daoyu." In the blink of an eye, several days had passed. During these few days, the entire Blood Beach was abuzz with the incident involving Lin Jing. However, Lin Jing had yet to make an appearance. Aside from Lin Jing, even the people from the Puppet Guild had been keeping a low profile for these 2 days. Lin Jing was originally waiting for the Puppet Guild leader to bring his men, but there had been no movement for the past 2 days. Even the location of Lin Jing's cave had been secretly leaked to the Puppet Guild by Suyi. But even so, the Puppet Guild leader had still made no move. Lin Jing had planned that if the Puppet Guild leader really came with people to block him during the day, he would hide in the system's space to avoid them. But now, to his surprise, no one came by even at night. Just as Lin Jing was growing impatient and planned to take another walk near the Blood Beach, the Puppet Guild finally took action. Under Lin Jing's divine sense surveillance, the Puppet Guild had set up an encirclement around the mountain where Lin Jing was located. This time, the Puppet Guild directly deployed 18 cultivators around Lin Jing's mountain. Moreover, they had set up a large formation around the mountain Lin Jing was on. The Puppet Guild's actions were extremely covert. If not for Lin Jing's powerful divine sense, he likely wouldn't have discovered any of this. All of this was happening quietly. Of course, this quietness was what the Puppet Guild members believed to be the case. In fact, everything they did was under Lin Jing's surveillance. This incident gave Lin Jing a new understanding of the Puppet Guild leader. With so many subordinates, he was still so cautious. He even wanted to quietly encircle him. While they were busy, Lin Jing naturally couldn't just sit idly by. He had already modified the cave. It was interconnected in every direction. Besides that, Lin Jing placed a large black stone at intervals within the cave. His purpose was naturally to disrupt their operations. Though Lin Jing was inside the cave and didn't go out, his divine sense had long probed out to observe their actions, even carefully watching the formation they had set up, just to ensure there were no oversights. You must know, in the devouring spirit blood realm, spirit stones are incredibly precious, and setting up a formation requires a large number of spirit stones. So it was clear that the puppet guild leader had really spared no expense to deal with him. And so, until this day, as night fell, the puppet guild's people were all prepared. Including the puppet guild leader, 18 puppet cultivators had encircled Lin Jing. The puppet guild had only a little over 40 members, so these 18 accounted for almost half of their number. Although they had strength in numbers, Lin Jing was not afraid. As long as the puppet guild leader made a move, that would be sufficient. If it really came to a fight, Lin Jing would let them know what it meant to fight fire with fire. Soon, the sky darkened. At this time, the blood corpses were about to emerge. Lin Jing took advantage of this moment to probe out with his divine sense once more, confirming the positions of the puppet guild's cultivators surrounding him, as well as the puppet guild leader's location. Once sure there were no errors, Lin Jing withdrew his divine sense. Next, he just needed to wait for the blood corpses to appear, and then Lin Jing could start his move. It wasn't long before night fell. Outside, the rustling sounds could be heard again. Soon after, the noises stopped, and then a new voice came from outside. "Uncle Lin Jing, Mommy isn't home. Luo Luo came to play with you." This time, it was Luo Luo's voice. Lin Jing was taken aback for a moment, then shook his head helplessly. The voices that the soul-eating spirits created were always those he was once familiar with. Just like Luo Luo, if it were the real Luo Luo, she should be grown up into a young woman by now. Not still the same child he once knew, with such a tender, childish voice. The seduction of the soul-eating spirits was getting quite uninspired. Following that, Lin Jing gathered his focus and immediately condensed his divine sense to probe outward. Outside Lin Jing's cave, sure enough, there were blood corpses and soul-eating spirits. And as soon as Lin Jing's divine sense reached out, it was attacked by the soul-eating spirits. However, fortunately, Lin Jing was well prepared. Such attacks were not a concern for him. Knowing that the zombies had come to his door, it was now time for Lin Jing to take action. Right after withdrawing his divine sense, Lin Jing immediately summoned the system and entered into the system space. Upon entering the system space, Lin Jing did not linger but spoke up directly. "System, activate fixed-point teleportation." As Lin Jing's words ended, the system began to respond. The teleportation function of the system activated, like entering observation mode. Lin Jing's perspective began to shift, appearing above the mountaintop. At this moment, the moon had not yet risen. It was an opportune time for action. Otherwise, it would be more troublesome once the moon appeared. Next, a rough area appeared before Lin Jing's eyes. This view is the range within which Lin Jing could teleport. Lin Jing then directly chose a mountaintop closest to one of the puppet guild members for teleportation. As Lin Jing selected the teleportation location, the system's prompt tone also sounded at this time. System notification, fixed-point teleportation successful, deducting harvest points, 1 point. Current harvest points remaining, 2,084 points. Soon after, Lin Jing felt a tearing force, and the scenery in front of his eyes began to blur. Then, by the time Lin Jing's vision cleared again, he had arrived at the location he had selected. Just as Lin Jing appeared, his divine sense was immediately attacked by the soul-eating spirits. And Lin Jing also saw several blood corpses speeding towards his location. At night, as soon as any living creature appears, the blood corpses could immediately sense it. That was why this situation occurred. Lin Jing didn't now have the time to entangle with these blood corpses. Upon emerging, he dashed at high speed toward the mountains outside. With Lin Jing's speed, even the blood corpses were left far behind. It wasn't until Lin Jing reached the edge of the formation that he came to a stop. Then, Right at the edge of the formation, Lin Jing entered system space again. After Lin Jing entered the system space, the blood corpses that had been pursuing him suddenly stopped. They seemed to be frozen in place, remaining where they were. It was only after a moment that the blood corpses began to move again, heading toward a nearby peak. Lin Jing didn't enter system space because of the blood corpses, but because of the Great Formation. This formation was composed of several fourth-rank formations, which had encircled the mountain peak where he was located. The purpose was to trap him on that mountain peak, preventing his escape. Of course, there was another reason. It was to protect themselves. The body refinement cultivator who had braved the assault of the blood corpses and forcefully killed one of their puppet guild members had left them all shaken. The aim of this formation was naturally to prevent such an incident from happening again. And Lin Jing's re-entry into system space was also to use fixed-point teleportation again to pass through the formation. This way was not only convenient, but would also catch them by surprise. After entering system space, Lin Jing once again activated the fixed-point teleportation function. This time, Lin Jing directly selected a cave of a puppet guild cultivator that was relatively close. Then he used the fixed-point teleportation function. System notification: fixed-point teleportation successful, deducting harvest points, 1 point. Current harvest points remaining, 2,083 points. As the system's prompt sounded, Lin Jing directly arrived inside the cultivator's cave abode. The moment Lin Jing appeared, he threw a punch out. This cultivator was controlling a puppet, heading towards Lin Jing's cave. However, while he was manipulating the puppet, a sudden and extreme sense of danger overwhelmed him. At that moment, before he could react, his body was pierced straight through by a fist. Only at this point did he come out of his control over the puppet and regain his senses. Then he saw the fist that had gone through his body. Afterward, the man turned around and saw Lin Jing. The terror and confusion in his eyes were even more intense. How did you appear here? However, Lin Jing had no time to answer his question. Afterward, Lin Jing's spiritual power erupted, directly destroying the man's divine sense. The man fell to the ground with a thud. Even in death, his eyes remained wide open. The confusion in his gaze seemed to linger for a long time. With that, the first person was taken care of. After dealing with the first, Lin Jing no longer hid. He took the man's storage bag and directly shattered the boulder, blocking the entrance to the man's cave. By now, he was outside the range of the formation, and naturally, Lin Jing didn't need to hide anything. At this moment, the cultivators from the puppet guild were busy controlling the puppets and heading towards their own caves. They were completely neglecting their own stronghold. Moreover, even if they did hear some noise, would they dare believe it? Would they dare to extend their divine sense to check? Therefore, in the night, Lin Jing could maximize his advantages and eliminate these people one by one. The second cultivator from the puppet guild that Lin Jing was looking for was not far from this peak, on a smaller hill. His cave was there. However, just now, as Lin Jing broke the black boulder, those blood corpses immediately rushed in. At the same time, the soul-eating Yin spirit continuously launched attacks on Lin Jing's divine sense. Even the cultivator from the puppet guild, whom Lin Jing had just killed, stood up once more. However, when he stood up this time, his expression was dull and his eyes lifeless. Clearly, he had become a walking corpse. Seeing the blood corpses coming at him, Lin Jing immediately took action, sending several multicolored streaks of light into the bodies of the blood corpses. Then, with a thought from Lin Jing, those multicolored streaks of light exploded within the blood corpses. They were blown into chunks, and even that soul-eating Yin spirit was thereby affected, temporarily halting its attack on Lin Jing. Next, the eyes of the soul-eating Yin spirit turned red, and in its hands a red blood sphere appeared. Then, the soul-eating Yin spirit waved its hands continuously, and the blood sphere split, turning into several droplets of blood that flew towards the blood corpses. Upon contact with the blood, those blood corpses began to wriggle. In no time, countless pieces of flesh gathered, and the blood corpses revived once more. Seeing the blood corpses resurrected again, Lin Jing paid them no further attention and instead bypassed these corpses, continuing his charge towards the next person. These blood corpses were really like dog-skin plasters, impossible to shake off. Seeing Lin Jing attempting to leave, the blood corpses directly blocked Lin Jing's path and launched an attack on him. Lin Jing had no time to entangle with these blood corpses. Hence, he immediately unleashed his extreme speed to get rid of the blood corpses and continued to fly towards the cave of the second cultivator from the Puppet Guild. Upon reaching the second cave, outside the cave, there was still a soul-eating Yin spirit and several blood corpses. Seeing Lin Jing flying over, the soul-eating Yin spirit and the blood corpses directly launched an attack on him. But Lin Jing didn't even dodge, directly charging at the blood corpses. This time, Lin Jing's body was covered with a layer of golden light, and he had activated his overlord body. Lin Jing simply threw a punch, and the blood corpse blocking him in front burst open, then turned into countless chunks that scattered on the ground. Lin Jing didn't stop. He went straight to the entrance of the cave, and with a punch shattered the black boulder blocking the entrance. Inside the boulder, there was also a magical treasure meant for alerts, which Lin Jing similarly smashed with a punch. However, after breaking through the cave, there was no one inside. Lin Jing, of course, knew this, perhaps out of habit or due to caution. The person was not in this cave, but in another cave deep inside this layer. Lin Jing's divine sense had already made that clear. The cultivator, after Lin Jing shattered the black boulder, immediately gave up control of the puppet and came to his senses. Upon regaining consciousness, he knew someone had attacked his cave. Therefore, he promptly abandoned his original place and continued to hide further inside the cavern. His cave was also interconnected in many directions. If it were an ordinary cultivator facing this situation, they might really have left. But under Lin Jing's divine sense, all of his actions were clearly visible. So, Lin Jing directly took out the Ling Yin flawless sword and sent it slashing into the depths of the cave. The seemingly inconspicuous stone wall behind the cave was immediately penetrated by the Ling Yin flawless sword, revealing the inner cave. After that, Lin Jing directly maneuvered the flawless sword, breaking through several boulders in succession. Finally, just in front of the boulder where the person was hiding, a shout came from inside the cave. "Senior, I was blind to Mount Tai. Please spare my life, Senior. From now on, at any time, I will follow your lead and be at your disposal." In response to this person's pleas, Lin Jing paid no heed. Although this person was smart and cautious, he had joined the Puppet Guild and clearly was not a good person by any means. Lin Jing naturally wouldn't let this person go. Then, with a thought from Lin Jing, the Ling Yin flawless sword struck once more, targeting the last boulder. A moment later, there was an additional walking corpse in this place. After killing this person, the next closest was the leader of the Puppet Guild. After killing that Puppet Guild cultivator, Lin Jing once again burst forth at extreme speed and left the person's cave. He immediately rushed toward a nearby mountain peak where the Puppet Guild leader resided. The mountain peak where the Puppet Guild leader resided was extremely easy to recognize as the tallest mountain peak in this area. Before long, Lin Jing ascended the mountain peak where the Puppet Guild leader resided and arrived at the entrance to the Puppet Guild leader's cave. This entrance to the Puppet Guild leader's cave was also protected by a separate fourth-ranked defensive array. And even those blood corpses were kept out by the array. In this devouring spirit blood realm, due to the absence of spiritual energy, one could only rely on spirit stones to provide the spiritual power needed for the operation of a formation. This formation consumed a considerable number of spirit stones overnight, at least a few thousand, if not tens of thousands of medium-grade spirit stones. Moreover, that was just the consumption needed to maintain the formation. If the formation were attacked, it would probably consume even more fiercely. Tens of thousands of spirit stones might not even be sufficient. Keep in mind that this was only the consumption for one night. Over a longer period, the cost would be even greater. The Puppet Guild leader was indeed quite generous. At this moment, Lin Jing was flying at top speed. Behind him followed the blood corpses he had encountered in those 2 caves, amounting to as many as 9. When Lin Jing arrived at the puppet guild leader's cave, those 5 blood corpses, which had originally been blocked outside the array, also charged towards Lin Jing upon detecting him. Altogether, there were 14 blood corpses and 3 soul-devouring spirits. Lin Jing was not worried about the blood corpses. The only thing giving him a headache was those soul-devouring spirits. One of these soul-devouring spirits alone wasn't much of a threat, but these 3 together, when their divine sense attacks overlapped and amplified each other's effects, they could unleash even greater power. These divine sense attacks were so powerful that even Lin Jing felt a faint pain in his mind and struggled to withstand it. Seeing the blood corpses gathering, Lin Jing dared not be careless any longer and directly summoned the system to enter the system space. After entering the system space, Lin Jing immediately took out a yellow dragon elixir and swallowed it. Having expended a lot of spiritual power in killing those 2 people and facing the blood corpses, Lin Jing took this opportunity to replenish his energy. This time he was facing the puppet guild leader, and Lin Jing needed to be fully prepared. After taking the yellow dragon elixir and recovering for a while in the system space, Lin Jing once again summoned the system and activated the fixed-point teleportation feature. Due to the existence of that array, Lin Jing needed to use fixed-point teleportation to enter inside the array. Otherwise, it would be extremely difficult to break through the array from the outside. Naturally, Lin Jing would not do such a thankless task. It would be much better to teleport directly inside, kill the puppet guild leader, and solve the problem once and for all. After entering observation mode, Lin Jing selected the inside of the cave and initiated fixed-point teleportation. As Lin Jing chose to teleport, the system notification sound also rang out at this time. System notification, fixed-point teleportation successful, deducting harvest points, 1 point. Current harvest points remaining, 2082 harvest points. Clothed in a gray robe, the puppet guild leader looked extremely mysterious. After using fixed-point teleportation, Lin Jing appeared directly behind the puppet guild leader. Immediately, Lin Jing threw a punch and attacked the puppet guild leader. Because Lin Jing's appearance was so sudden, it wasn't until Lin Jing's fist landed that the puppet guild leader became aware. However, even though Lin Jing's fist had struck, he felt that something was off. The punch had not landed on his body, but on the gray robe. Where Lin Jing's fist made contact with the robe, it did not shatter, but instead flipped over, turning into a massive pocket, attempting to envelop Lin Jing within. It seemed that this gray robe was a magical treasure of no low grade. Seeing this, Lin Jing quickly retreated. At the same time, he drew out the Ling Yin flawless sword and stabbed towards the gray robe, trying to cut it apart. As Lin Jing retreated, he also saw the puppet guild leader roll forward, moving out of Lin Jing's attack range. The Ling Yin flawless sword swiftly stabbed forward and soon made contact with the robe. However, the normally extremely sharp Ling Yin flawless sword could not leave even a mark on the gray robe, and the robe directly wrapped up the Ling Yin flawless sword, rendering it immobile. Quickly, Lin Jing lost control over the Ling Yin flawless sword, and his connection to it vanished. Lin Jing was shocked, not expecting the gray robe to be so formidable that it could sever the link between a magical treasure and its owner. Seeing that Lin Jing could no longer control the Ling Yin flawless sword, the puppet guild leader reached out with his hand, and the robe returned to his grasp, this time bringing with it the Ling Yin flawless sword. Only then did Lin Jing look up and get a clear view of the puppet guild leader's face. The puppet guild leader looked utterly ordinary, the kind that would go unnoticed even when thrown into a crowd. But he was extremely cautious, and when he looked at Lin Jing, he did so with a strong sense of curiosity. Next to him stood a puppet, and the aura emanating from the puppet was also very formidable. The aura of the puppet was at the very least equivalent to a golden core peak cultivator. It seemed that the puppet guild leader had quite a few tricks up his sleeve. Previously, Lin Jing had also inquired about the puppet guild leader, but he never knew that his gray robe had such an effect, nor had the golden core peak puppet ever been displayed in public. At this time, the puppet guild leader curiously looked at Lin Jing and asked, "My cave is clearly protected by a formation. How did you manage to pass through the formation and come into my cave, and without damaging the black boulder?" Lin Jing swept a glance at the gray robe and the puppet before turning to the puppet guild leader and spoke. "You've hidden your capabilities so deeply, possessing such a magical treasure and puppet, yet never making them known." The puppet guild leader then spoke to Lin Jing. "Hand over the method you used to pass through the formation and enter this cave, and I might spare you." Lin Jing snorted coldly and said, "Dream on." With that, he charged straight forward toward the puppet guild leader. The puppet guild leader stepped back 2 paces, watching Lin Jing with wariness. He immediately chanted an incantation, and under his spell, the golden core peak puppet's eyes snapped open, awakening, and charged towards Lin Jing. Seeing this, Lin Jing also made his move, trading a punch with the puppet. Boom! A loud noise erupted, and Lin Jing was shaken back several steps by the punch. Meanwhile, the puppet was only forced back 2 steps. In this head-on clash, Lin Jing seemed to be at a slight disadvantage. It should be noted that Lin Jing cultivated the Overlord Divine Physique, which was unlike that of ordinary body refinement cultivators. Lin Jing then shook his numb arm, his gaze locked onto the golden core peak puppet. The puppet guild leader across from him was equally astonished. After all, his puppet was not ordinary. This puppet had consumed countless efforts of his. Although it appeared to be only at the golden core peak, its true combat power was almost on par with a nascent soul cultivator. And now, a body refinement cultivator was able to match this puppet. Next, the puppet guild leader looked at Lin Jing and said, "Give up. You can't possibly be a match for my puppet. As long as you leave behind the method you used to penetrate into this defensive array, I will spare your life, and you can even join the puppet guild. I truly do not wish to be enemies with someone as strong as you." Facing the words of the puppet guild leader, Lin Jing naturally held them in contempt. "Do you really think that with this puppet, you can defeat me?" The puppet guild leader replied, "My puppet might not be able to hold you down, but you won't be able to escape my heaven-concealing Qinquan robe. This heaven-concealing Qinquan robe is a Dao artifact capable of enveloping all things in heaven and earth. Any magical treasure, once shrouded by it, can be disconnected from its owner and claimed as my own." While the puppet guild leader spoke, he retrieved the Lin Jing flawless sword from within the heaven-concealing Qinquan robe. At this moment, the Lin Jing flawless sword was covered with a layer of gray. Seeing him take out the Lin Jing flawless sword, Lin Jing tried to wield it, but found it completely beyond his control. The puppet guild leader thus directly placed the Lin Jing flawless sword into his own space ring in front of Lin Jing. Then, the puppet guild leader continued, "If you hand over the technique that allows you to silently enter my defensive formation, I will spare your life, and you can also join the puppet guild." Lin Jing gave a cold laugh and said, "Aren't you going to avenge your brother's death?" However, the puppet guild leader was remarkably calm as he replied, "He was just a half-brother, arrogant and bound to meet disaster. Even if he didn't die at your hands, he would have perished by someone else's sooner or later. It's nothing unusual. If not for the reputation of my puppet guild, I really wouldn't want to make an enemy of you. With your exceptional skills, if we work together, we can certainly leave the devouring spirit blood realm." Lin Jing then looked at the puppet guild leader and said, "However, do you really think that with just a puppet and that gray robe, you could take me down?" The puppet guild leader frowned, observing Lin Jing for a moment, then spoke, "Your flying sword has been taken by me, and your body refinement skills are restrained by my puppet. Do you have any other means to counter my heaven-concealing Qinquan robe and puppet?" Lin Jing laughed coldly and answered, "You could try." Upon hearing this, the puppet guild leader's brow furrowed even deeper. After surveying Lin Jing once more, he said, I don't believe you possess an artifact beyond the level of a Dao artifact. As long as it is not an artifact of that caliber, no magical treasure or Dao artifact can escape the envelopment of the heaven-concealing Qinquan robe. Having said that, the puppet guild leader once again chanted, and the puppet lunged forward, attacking Lin Jing. At the same moment, the puppet guild leader also controlled the heaven-concealing Qinquan robe, attempting to shroud Lin Jing within it. Then, the puppet guild leader said, once trapped by the heaven-concealing Qinquan robe, even with the strength to reach heaven, you can't break free. Facing the combined attack of the puppet and the heaven-concealing Qinquan robe, Lin Jing was not only unafraid, but even rushed forward, with a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth. This outcome was exactly what Lin Jing had wanted. When the puppet guild leader saw the smile on the corner of Lin Jing's mouth, his heart skipped, and he instantly felt uneasy. Although he was not clear on what was wrong, his innate caution prompted him to beat a retreat. He wanted to retract his heaven-concealing Qinquan robe immediately. Seeing the puppet guild leader attempt to take back the heaven-concealing Qinquan robe, Lin Jing certainly wouldn't allow it. Ever since he saw the capabilities of the heaven-concealing Qinquan robe, Lin Jing had set his sights on it. Now, with his plan nearing success, how could he allow the puppet guild leader to take back the heaven-concealing Qinquan robe? Next, Lin Jing burst forth with extreme speed, suddenly appearing next to the retreating heaven-concealing Qinquan robe, grabbing hold of it. His other hand had already grasped the golden core peak puppet's arm. At the same time, Lin Jing silently summoned in his mind, enter the system space. After the spatial transmission was initiated, this time it was different from past teleportations. A force that seemed to want to tear through space came, attempting to transfer Lin Jing into the midst of it. However, both the heaven-concealing Qinquan robe and the puppet at the peak of the golden core stage were frantically resisting this spatial tearing force. Nevertheless, the item that Lin Jing had grasped in his hand was futile to escape, even if it wanted to, because the transmission from the system space followed system rules and was not like other teleportation arrays. If it were another teleportation array, it might be possible for the heaven-concealing Qinquan robe and the puppet to slip away. But the transmission function of the system space wouldn't allow it. Afterward, Lin Jing felt himself enshrouded by an extremely familiar aura, the unique aura that only the system space possessed. And it was not just Lin Jing. The familiar aura even wrapped up the heaven-concealing Qinquan robe and the puppet at the peak of the golden core stage in Lin Jing's hand. Immediately following that, Lin Jing's vision blurred, and the scenery became indistinct. When Lin Jing could see clearly once again, he had already entered the system space. This time, he was again met with the view of the vast and lush green earth spirit fields, and the spiritual energy within this space felt so refreshing. And in Lin Jing's hand, he was still holding onto the heaven-concealing Qinquan robe and the puppet at the peak of the golden core stage. If it hadn't been for the puppet guild leader using the heaven-concealing Qinquan robe to take away his Ling Yin flawless sword, Lin Jing would not have thought of this method. It was unexpected that even on someone as cautious as the puppet guild leader, there would still be such good items. Now, within the system space, the heaven-concealing Qinquan robe had lost control and drooped down, and the puppet at the peak of the golden core also closed its eyes once more, no longer moving. Things that entered the system space were naturally disconnected from the outside world. This time, the puppet guild leader had indeed suffered a huge loss. Subsequently, Lin Jing threw both the heaven-concealing Qinquan robe and the puppet at the peak of the golden core into the system space. He himself, on the other hand, left the system space once more. Now, with the puppet guild leader still outside, Lin Jing had no time to refine those two treasures. When Lin Jing returned to the cave and the puppet guild leader saw him, he immediately asked, "Who exactly are you?" "It's impossible, absolutely impossible. The heaven-concealing Qinquan robe was my life-bound magical treasure refined with the blood refinement method, and that puppet was consecrated by me with a special technique. It's impossible for them to lose connection with me. At this moment, the puppet guild leader no longer had his previous caution and composure, replaced instead by a face filled with shock and fear. Because the Lin Jing before him was too bizarre. He had vanished suddenly, then reappeared just as quickly, and took the two most important things to him. He also took away his biggest reliance. No matter what, he could not sense the presence of those two items. He was extremely panicked at this point, continuing to ask Lin Jing, "Who exactly are you? How can you come and go as you please in this devouring spirit blood realm? Do you have any connection with that divine transformation cultivator?" At this point, the puppet guild leader suddenly stopped being panicked, but his eyes lit up, suddenly excited. "That's it. Only that way could you move freely in this devouring spirit blood realm." Having said that, he directly opened his space ring and took out the Ling Jing flawless sword. Then he said, "I will return your flying sword. I will also give you the heaven-concealing Chinquan robe and that puppet. I assure you I will not be your enemy anymore. I only ask you to help me get out." At this moment, the puppet guild leader seemed like he had found a lifesaver, hurriedly speaking to Lin Jing with an eager face. Lin Jing, upon seeing this scene, was also taken aback. He had not expected the puppet guild leader to mistake him for the underling of a divine transformation cultivator. However, facing the puppet guild leader, Lin Jing showed no good expression. He directly said, "Want to get out? Dream on." Then the puppet guild leader's face stiffened, but he quickly replied, "I can give you everything. I can even be your servant. As long as you take me out, you can have whatever you want." At this moment, the puppet guild leader was almost frenzied, so desperate to get out that he was disregarding everything else. Lin Jing looked at the puppet guild leader, his brow furrowed slightly. Then he said to him, "You want me to take you out?" After hearing this, the puppet guild leader nodded repeatedly, his eyes filled with hope as he looked at Lin Jing. Lin Jing smiled at the corner of his mouth and said again, "Okay, first dismantle this formation, and then I can take you out." After hearing this, the puppet guild leader was first taken aback, then nodded and said, "Sure, I will dismantle this defensive array right now." Having said that, he walked towards a formation eye at the center of the formation. Next, the puppet guild leader approached the formation eye, his back to Lin Jing, and then placed his hand on the formation eye, chanting an incantation. The entire formation's formation patterns then surfaced, and those patterns also began to fade slowly. It looked like the formation was about to be dismantled. But just at that moment, the puppet guild leader suddenly let out a fierce shout. "Freeze!" In that instant, a red light burst forth from the palm of his hand, spreading rapidly throughout the entire cave. The moment the red light touched Lin Jing, he felt his divine sense being assaulted. He could not move, and even the spiritual power within his body became stagnant and was impossible to mobilize. This attack appeared to be related to divine sense. Meanwhile, a red light protected the puppet guild leader himself, leaving him unharmed. The sudden appearance of this red light was too abrupt. Lin Jing hadn't even had time to react before he was immobilized on the spot. Only then did the puppet guild leader turn around. At the same time, a red bead appeared in his hand. The puppet guild leader now had a smile of successful conspiracy on his face as he said to Lin Jing, "This boundary-fixing spirit bead can even freeze space itself. I don't believe that you can still escape like this. Today, only by killing you can I truly be at ease. Go to hell." As he spoke, the puppet guild leader's smile disappeared, and his gaze became fixed as he directly summoned his flying sword and attacked Lin Jing. Facing the incoming flying sword, Lin Jing showed no sign of panic. Instead, he chanted silently in his heart, "System, activate the strengthening possession feature." As Lin Jing's words fell, strengthening possession was activated, and the system prompt followed. Ding! System prompt. Strengthening possession activated successfully. 5 harvest points deducted. 1 harvest point will be deducted every minute after 5 minutes. Lin Jing's divine sense surged, and his body regained mobility instantly. Even the spiritual power in his body, which had been stagnant, began to circulate again. What boundary-fixing spirit bead? It was nothing more than a simulation of divine sense pressure, a special kind of divine sense attack. As long as one's divine sense was strong enough, it could be lifted. In fact, when the puppet guild leader first took out the boundary-fixing spirit bead, Lin Jing had already known. Lin Jing had originally thought it was another offensive magical treasure that needed to be used against oneself to attack. Lin Jing was already prepared to dodge into the system's space at any moment. To his surprise, the puppet guild leader launched the attack directly while his back was turned toward Lin Jing. Lin Jing himself didn't react in time. However, it was also because of the special nature of the boundary-fixing spirit beads attack that Lin Jing understood its actual effect. And when the red light swept over him, it further confirmed Lin Jing's conjecture. Therefore, he had activated the strengthening possession feature just as the puppet guild leader was preparing to make his move. Just as the puppet guild leader commanded his flying sword to kill, Lin Jing, who had shaken off the influence of the red light and recovered, burst forth at high speed, charging toward the puppet guild leader. The puppet guild leader, who had thought Lin Jing couldn't move and could only wait for death, saw Lin Jing charging again. His eyes bulged in disbelief. And Lin Jing also reached the puppet guild leader's side at that moment. However, the puppet guild leader reacted incredibly fast, conjuring a shield to block in front of him as Lin Jing charged. Lin Jing's charge punch smash hit the puppet guild leader's shield. When Lin Jing's fist landed on the shield, dense formation patterns emerged on it instantly, dissipating all the force from Lin Jing's punch. This puppet guild leader, it had to be said that he really had many magical treasures. After pounding on a shield, Lin Jing then used the force to retreat. Meanwhile, the puppet guild leader took out a golden whip from his space ring and gripped it in his hand. At the same time, he said to Lin Jing, "Return my heaven-concealing Qinquan robe and the puppet, and from then on, we'll stay out of each other's way." This time, the puppet guild leader was extremely serious, and his eyes were filled with caution as he looked at Lin Jing. Now, he genuinely did not want to be enemies with Lin Jing anymore. However, Lin Jing had no intention of letting him off so easily. Sneering coldly, Lin Jing said, I want to see just how many magical treasures you have." With that, Lin Jing charged once more at the puppet guild leader. But this time, not only did the puppet guild leader block with the shield, but he also swung the golden whip. As the golden whip was wielded, it emitted a golden light, mixed with the sound of a fierce whistling. Lin Jing, who wanted to charge through, found his movements affected by the golden light, and he slowed down significantly. Lin Jing, slowed down, couldn't pose a threat to the puppet guild leader. Seeing this, Lin Jing had to retreat from the area where the whip was swinging. The puppet guild leader frowned and said to Lin Jing, "Give up. You're just a body refinement cultivator." Hearing this, Lin Jing scoffed and said, "Who said I'm merely a body refinement cultivator?" Immediately after, Lin Jing activated the 5 elements divine art, and a stream of 5 elements divine light flew from his hand, quickly heading towards the puppet guild leader. Seeing this, the puppet guild leader's face changed drastically, and he exclaimed, "5 elements divine light, you've actually cultivated the 5 elements divine art." At the same time, the puppet guild leader no longer cared about the magical treasures in his hand, hastily dropping them and retreating while operating his cultivation technique, a light cyan glow radiating from his body in an attempt to resist that colorful stream of light. Suddenly, the colorful stream of light touched the light cyan glow surrounding him, the two intertwining. The colorful stream of light was incredibly powerful, completely overpowering the light cyan glow. Helplessly, the puppet guild leader had to mobilize more of the light cyan glow, enveloping the colorful light to slowly extinguish it. Finally, after some time, the stream of colorful light was extinguished. However, that was just the beginning. Lin Jing did not give him a chance to catch his breath. Afterward, Lin Jing activated his cultivation technique again, and several streams of 5 elements divine light flew out, converging into a mass of colorful light that headed towards the puppet guild leader. Seeing the light mass, the puppet guild leader became highly alarmed and tried to retreat. But the cave was only so big, he had nowhere left to retreat. Seeing that he couldn't avoid the mass of colorful light, the puppet guild leader shouted to Lin Jing, "Spare me. I know something about the 5 elements divine art." But Lin Jing did not hold back, taking advantage of the puppet guild leader's distraction to burst forth at extreme speed, arriving beside him. Then he struck out with a punch, sending the puppet guild leader flying. Lin Jing's punch was not easy to endure. With one strike, the puppet guild leader spat out a great mouthful of blood and flew backward. And that mass of colorful light took the opportunity to enter the puppet guild leader's body. Upon seeing the colored light clusters entering his body, the puppet guild leader hurriedly circulated his cultivation technique, increasing the cyan light around him, hoping to force the colored light clusters out of his body. However, the cyan light, despite becoming increasingly dazzling, was futile. This was because once the colored light clusters had entered the body of the puppet guild leader, they dispersed again, spreading throughout his body and clinging to his meridians, making them impossible to expel. Seeing this, the puppet guild leader immediately panicked, quickly wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, and said to Lin Jing, "Lin Daoyu, please show mercy. I know of a cultivation technique that matches your 5 elements divine art perfectly. The technique is known as the immortal 5 elements technique, and I know where it is. Just spare me, and I'll tell you." Lin Jing had no intention of letting the puppet guild leader off. However, concerning the immortal 5 elements technique, Lin Jing still decided to inquire, so he spoke, "Say it now, or I'll detonate the 5 elements power inside you this instant." After Lin Jing's words fell, the puppet guild leader looked at Lin Jing and said, "Lin Daoyu, if you swear on your soul spirit that you won't kill me, I'll tell you immediately." Lin Jing snorted coldly and retorted, "Umph, thinking of negotiating terms at this point. Keeping you is of no use." As he finished speaking, Lin Jing directly deployed the 5 elements divine art again and provoked an explosion of the 5 elements power within the puppet guild leader's body. One could see the multicolored divine light beaming directly out from the puppet guild leader's body, and under the illumination of the multicolored divine light, his body began to slowly dissipate. Seeing Lin Jing make a merciless move, the puppet guild leader panicked, no longer daring to negotiate any terms with Lin Jing, and hastily blurted out, "Lin Daoyu, stop, I'll tell you. The immortal 5 elements technique is on Tian Island." Before he could finish speaking, he could no longer hold on, and his entire being dissipated into the multicolored divine light. After his complete disappearance, the space ring on his body fell to the ground with a clatter. The puppet guild leader was finally dealt with by Lin Jing. After dealing with the puppet guild leader, Lin Jing picked up the space ring that fell to the ground, as well as the shield and the golden whip he had discarded earlier. Then, Lin Jing looked around the cave a bit longer, ensuring nothing was overlooked. Only then did he destroy the formation, break the giant black rock at the entrance, and leave the place. After getting rid of the puppet guild leader, everything else became easier. Lin Jing then flew onwards, breaking the giant black rocks at the entrance of each puppet guild cultivator's cave, bypassing the blood corpses and leaving swiftly, leaving behind the puppet guild cultivators who had lost their puppets, facing the bloodthirsty blood corpses and devouring shadowy spirits. Since their puppets had all gone to besiege Lin Jing, they were now left to face the blood corpses alone. In fact, most of the cultivators could not react in time when Lin Jing broke the black rocks and were controlled by the devouring shadowy spirits, subsequently dying at the hands of the blood corpses. Only a few 3 or 4 managed to fight the blood corpses for a while before being defeated, some dying on the spot, and others becoming living corpses due to the exhaustion of their spiritual power. After these people died, Lin Jing collected all of their storage bags and space rings. Next, Lin Jing made another round outside, destroying the formations that had surrounded his cave, and then returned to his own cave. Near his own cave, a dozen puppets lay scattered on the ground. These were left behind by those puppet guild cultivators. Since Lin Jing's attack was sudden and unexpected, these people had not had time to react before being attacked. Therefore, these puppets were abandoned here. These puppets, all made from various rare materials, were each incredibly valuable. Naturally, Lin Jing did not overlook them. Upon seeing these puppets, he collected them all into his space ring. Even if Lin Jing did not use these puppets himself, they could be sold for a good amount of spirit stones once he got out. Lin Jing collected the puppets from outside and then returned to his previous cave. By that time, the cave had already been dismantled by the puppets of the Puppet Guild cultivators, having lost its ability to fend off the blood corpses. However, Lin Jing still had the system space. He then directly entered the system space at the location of the cave. This venture had brought Lin Jing considerable gains. The heaven-concealing Qinquan robe, puppets at the Golden Core Peak stage, and several magical treasures from the Puppet Guild leader, as well as storage bag from other Puppet Guild cultivators. It was estimated that even the spirit stones alone amounted to a large sum. Then, Lin Jing, accompanied by the Golden Core Peak puppet and the heaven-concealing Qinquan robe, entered the alchemy room. Once in the alchemy room, Lin Jing pulled out the storage bags of the Puppet Guild leader and the other Puppet Guild cultivators, as well as their space rings. He still needed to inventory the treasures inside these people's space rings and then categorize them anew. Following that, Lin Jing broke all the restrictions on the storage bags and the space ring. These restrictions were mainly for blocking cultivators of a similar level. To forcefully break them, one needed divine sense. Since Lin Jing's divine sense was far stronger than theirs, he didn't have to expend much effort and forcefully broke all the restrictions on the storage spaces. After breaking the restrictions, Lin Jing first picked up the space ring of the Puppet Guild leader, inserting his divine sense into it. Upon probing into this Puppet Guild leader's space ring, Lin Jing immediately noticed that it was filled with treasures, truly befitting the Puppet Guild leader. In the space ring, spirit stones were piled up in heaps, and there were also plenty of other materials and magical treasures. These must have been obtained by him within the devouring spirit blood realm. There were so many golden core cultivators in this devouring spirit blood realm, many of whom had some influence outside, possibly as an island master of some island. Or perhaps they were upper echelon members or elders of some forces who originally possessed no small amount of spirit stones and treasures. Yet they perished miserably within the devouring spirit blood realm. Their storage bags, or space rings, including the treasures within, naturally fell into the hands of others. Since the Puppet Guild had an infamous reputation, it naturally had committed numerous deeds of murder and robbery, so it made sense for them to have these treasures. After scanning the space ring, Lin Jing began to take inventory of everything inside. Just the medium-grade spirit stones in this Puppet Guild leader space ring numbered over 15 million, and there were also about 60 or 70,000 superior-grade spirit stones. Besides the spirit stones, there were also plenty of high-grade materials and spirit plants. There was even a 5th-rank spirit plant, the Yin Quan Jade Spirit Ginseng, contained inside a jade box. This Yin Quan Jade Spirit Ginseng was an auxiliary ingredient for refining the cleansing spirit elixir, something Lin Jing had seen before on the elixir recipe given to him by the woman in white. He never expected to find one here, which was a pleasant surprise for him. After that, Lin Jing continued to check the contents of the space ring. It was not until he probed into a corner of the space ring that he found several books and a jade slip. One of the jade slips had the words puppetry technique boldly inscribed on it. This should be the complete puppetry technique practiced by the Puppet Guild leader. At this time, Lin Jing did not look through the puppetry technique, but directly continued to probe further. It was some time later that he finished investigating the Puppet Guild leader's space ring. There were quite a few magical treasures inside, but not a single Dao tool. It made sense as they were all golden core cultivators. Obtaining one Dao tool was already against the odds, and finding a second one was essentially impossible. Even the shield and the golden whip the guild leader had used before were only top-quality magical treasures. These treasures, presumably, had been obtained from other cultivators as well. After finishing with the puppet guild leader's space ring, Lin Jing set it aside and started investigating the storage treasures of the other puppet guild cultivators. It took quite some time before Lin Jing finished taking inventory of the remaining storage treasures. He then spent another 4 hours organizing these items and sorting them accordingly. This time, Lin Jing obtained almost 30 million medium-grade spirit stones, with more than half coming from the puppet guild leader alone. In addition, there were also 100,000 superior-grade spirit stones. As most Golden Core cultivators used medium-grade spirit stones for cultivation or trade, the number of superior-grade spirit stones was not very high. The superior-grade spirit stones of these dozen or so people combined were still less than what the Black Shark Gang leader had by himself. This was actually quite normal. Besides these, there were some magical treasures and various materials for spirit plants. In one of the space rings, Lin Jing found a nirvana flower. Now that he needed to refine the nirvana elixir, with this nirvana flower, Lin Jing did not have to force the ripening of the nirvana flower in his own spirit field. He could save a lot of harvest points. Apart from the nirvana flower, there were no other spirit plant materials that Lin Jing was interested in, not to mention the elixir medicines. The devouring spirit blood realm was most lacking in elixir medicines and spirit plants for refining elixirs, so they didn't have many of those either. After sorting these items, Lin Jing also collected the golden core stage puppet, which could be studied slowly later. What Lin Jing was most interested in now was the heaven-concealing Qingquan robe. That robe was a good item. It could even forcibly take away others' magical treasures. Lin Jing had to research it thoroughly. Then, Lin Jing picked up the heaven-concealing Qingquan robe and inspected it closely. It looked rough on the outside, but was incredibly smooth on the inside, made from an unknown material. He also tried tearing at it a few times and found that the robe was extremely tough. Even with Lin Jing's strength, he couldn't damage it in the slightest. After testing, Lin Jing directly stimulated his divine sense, attempting to refine the heaven-concealing Qingquan robe.